Alrighty, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ben Pritchard. I am a PhD student under Dr. Brosnan, and I will be filling in for him today. And then we also have Dylan McCollum, who is a master's student under Dr. Horvath, who will be filling in for Dr. Horvath. And then Dr. Bowling and Dr. Strachan, y'all may want to introduce yourselves real quick. I'm sure nobody knows Dr. Strachan, so may want to make sure to introduce yourself.
I'm John Sorokin, filling in for John Sorokin, and I'm one of the turf faculty here at UT.
And I'm Becky Bowling, and I am new turf faculty here at UT. I started May 1.
Alrighty, well, thank you everyone for joining today. So we have a pretty great episode today of Tennessee Turf Tuesday, where we are going to be featuring our newest member of the Tennessee Turfgrass Team, which you all have guessed it is Dr. Bowling. So a few things before we start off here. You all
Could have been me.
Could
have been me. You don't know. There might be someone that doesn't know.
Did you get rehired? I know you got fired, but I didn't know you got rehired. But just a few things here before we get really into it. Pesticide credits, you all have done everything you need to do. So that should be good. You should have selected a state, and then you'll be awarded today's episode or today's credit for that state that you provided, as long as you provided your license number. And Zoom will build a roster from those of you that have joined us today. Make sure you are on the full hour to receive your pesticide credits. This session also will be recorded and will be available on the UT Turfgrass YouTube channel and the Turf Tuesdays feed on Apple Podcasts. And pesticide credits are not available for archive viewing on YouTube or Apple Podcasts. Remember to keep that in mind. And then any questions during the session, just please put those in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and then we will do our best to answer most of those questions aloud during the session. But if any are missed, we will be those will be answered and typed in the box by one of the panelists. So after that, I guess I'll kick it over to you, Dr. Bowling. Do you want to just introduce yourself, give maybe a little icebreaker spill about yourself, and then we'll sort of get into just talking about life?
Yeah, that sounds great. So well, I'm really excited to be here today. I woke up excited this morning to do this. So think what you will about that. Maybe it makes me kind of a dork, but I'm excited to be here. I'm originally from Texas. I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, just north of Dallas, in kind of the Louisville, Carrollton area. And I did my undergrad and my master's at Texas Tech, both in horticulture. And then I did a PhD at the University of Georgia. Please don't hold that against me, in environmental turf management. And then I was at Texas A&M for the last 5 years as faculty there. I had kind of two roles while I was there. The first couple of years I was there, I was a statewide turf specialist out of College Station. And then I was asked to co-lead a new program at A&M for urban water issues in the Dallas area. So I did that for about 3 years before coming here to UT in May. So that's the background spiel. And then I guess I'll just add to that to kind of clarify my role, I'm a 100% extension appointment. I will still have a research program here, but kind of stepping into some very big shoes, which if those of you that are familiar with Dr. Tom Samples, stepped into his position, almost an impossible role to fill, but I'll do my best. And so, yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you for giving me a little spill. So what, I guess a good question to start off here is what had you excited about coming to Tennessee? What made you choose Tennessee? Give us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there's a few reasons. So the first is that Tennessee legitimately has one of the best turf programs in the country. And so, and I would say it has the best in the Southern US for sure. And so for me, there was a lot of appeal there to coming to a really solid program. And I also I genuinely like working in a team environment, and that's a priority for this program. This group works really closely together. And so I was really excited to join that and become part of the group and be part of a team. And I was also really excited to get back to the Southeast. You know, I love Texas, born and raised Texan, kind of an obnoxious Texas pride person, but I really missed living someplace green with water. You know, when I lived in North Georgia, it was a really beautiful place to live. Knoxville is a very beautiful place to live. Really nice being back in a true college town that has art and good music and good food and not all of the traffic of Dallas. So excited about that as well. And then my husband is from North Georgia, so we're closer to his family, and he's really excited to be back closer to SEC East football. It's all he talks about. He's also really happy to be back in Atlanta Braves country. He had to pay special memberships in Texas to be able to watch Braves games, and he doesn't have to do that here. So he's really excited about that. So yeah.
Alrighty. Another thing that I think would be interesting for you to talk about is you did mention that you do have some big shoes to fill with Dr. Samples, obviously beloved across the state. What are a few of the things you're working on right now, plan to be working on the next few months to start to fill those shoes?
Yeah, so big priority for me right now is just getting around and meeting people, meeting as many people as I can. So I actually see that one of our county agents, Mitchell Moat, is on here. I got to spend some time with him last week in Murfreesboro. We went and visited some golf courses there and had a great day with him. He took me to get barbecue, which was fun. And so, yeah, just getting around, seeing as many places as I can, meeting as many people as I can, and really getting a sense of the turfgrass industry here in Tennessee across its 3 regions, getting a sense of what some of the needs are from an extension perspective. I'll be in Jackson tomorrow night. I'll get to spend the evening with one of our sod farms there, and then I'll spend Thursday doing summer celebration out in the western part of the state. So I'm looking forward to that. And so over the next few months, my goal is really to kind of do what I refer to as a comprehensive needs assessment. So thinking about what are the resources and programmatic needs for professional turf development across the state. What are superintendents looking for? What are sports field managers looking for? Municipal parks folks, landscape folks, production folks. What are they looking for in terms of resources? What are they looking for in terms of education, training for staff, employees, et cetera? All those things that we do on the extension side, and kind of using that to build a roadmap for my program that I'll hopefully be able to share at the TTA meeting later this winter. And then a lot of my focus here in Tennessee will be very environmental and water oriented. So one of the things I'm working on right now is putting together a statewide survey with one of our ag economists to evaluate irrigation infrastructure across the state and how that corresponds to efficiency in terms of labor and monetary costs, and basically trying to get some numbers together that may help turf managers, and probably with a lot of emphasis on superintendents, kind of advocate for what they need. I've been to several golf courses now where there's a need for updated irrigation, but it's hard sometimes to make that argument, right? And to get that message across. And so thinking about generating numbers that are going to help people do that. And then I'm just working on grant proposals. You know, we're blessed as faculty with the job of having to bring in good money. So so that's another thing I'm working on right now as well.
Very cool.
Becky, you mentioned the team and all that, and I noticed, like, you've been spending a lot of time out at the research farm, so you've gotten to know the grad students and technicians and things out there, and Bill and everything. What are your thoughts of everyone and what you've been getting to so far, I guess?
Oh, I mean, I will tell you that I feel very validated that this was a really great decision for me to come here. Truly. And my parents are visiting this week, and I haven't shut up about that with them while they're here. And so, I mean, I think, having been, I want to be careful about what I say here, but having been around other turf programs at other universities, I would say that Tennessee's is unparalleled to anything else that I've experienced in terms of how well people work together, the expertise that goes in. I mean, having Bill out there to help manage our facilities, I mean, I don't know that that you're going to see that in most other turf programs, somebody with that level of expertise, like just simple things that I'll share with our little audience here, like very atypical to go into a turf program and see that all of the resources are shared and organized in a single place, meaning that each faculty, a lot of other places, each faculty will have their own, stuff, their own products, their own equipment. It's all just in a kind of compartmentalized place that's theirs. It may or may not be shared with others. Here, everything is organized and very centralized and shared among the team. And I don't know, all of that impresses me. The students, of course, impress me, including the two that are on here. So yeah, all positive, except for you, John. I'm still on the
Yeah, I'm still suspect, trust me. Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, he's pretty suspect. You might want to keep an eye on him.
Arms reach.
Most definitely. Well, thank you for going through all that, Dr. Bowling. So, like you talked about all that. Is there anything, I know that you may want to talk a little bit about your appointment, which is 100% extension. So like maybe talk about like some things that you may be able to do for some of the participants on this call, like for instance, if they were to reach out to you or ways they can reach out to you and how you may be able to help them.
Yeah, it may be good to give a little background on kind of what extension is too, because not everybody's familiar with it. And so, extension is going to be the entity attached to a land grant institution whose role it is to really extend science-based information to the public. So, the way that it typically should look is that I would work really closely with research faculty like John and Jim and Brandon. I mean, Jim has an extension appointment as well, but he's majority research to kind of take all of the great work that they're doing and think of ways that I can share that with different audiences across the state. So that's kind of one part of that. And also to work very closely with the county extension offices that are in the 95 counties here in Tennessee and the phenomenal agents that we have working in those counties. And then, I feel like my role is, as turfgrass stakeholders across the state run into challenges related to managing turf, related sometimes, sometimes the issue is not necessarily how do I overcome this agronomic issue, which certainly can be a consistent theme in the types of things we see, but how do I communicate my needs to other people that have a say in what I do, right? So if I'm managing a facility, that doesn't necessarily mean that I have complete control over what the budget looks like, or it could mean that I have people from the public visiting my facility that don't understand some of the things that I'm doing or that I need to do to manage my facility. So I also feel like part of my role is to help stakeholders think about how can they communicate and provide them with resources to help them do what they need to do for their jobs. And so, I would say if you're a superintendent or professional landscaper or a sod grower or a sports field manager or parks manager, as you come across challenges, I guess my job is to help you feel supported and to help you remember that you're not alone. And so, you're welcome to reach out to me directly. And whether it's, me that you're working with, or we're bringing in the whole Tennessee turf team, depending on the scope of the issue, or we're working with the county agents, kind of helping you troubleshoot and problem solve. And this year, of course, we had a lot of questions early in the year about the winter we had, right? And like Jim and these guys, they put together like a phenomenal letter. I'm sure several of you have seen it, that kind of overviews, and maybe John, you can speak to this better than me, but that overviews some of the weather challenges we had this year and the impact that had on winter kill and delayed green up, and being able to share that as a resource that a superintendent could use and say, this is an issue we're having statewide, and this is why we're having this issue, and this is why we're going to be cart path only for a while, and or whatever they need to be able to say. And as I've gone around, I've gotten several compliments about that letter that y'all put together, John, and so I think it's things like that.
I've heard a lot of great feedback from that as well, and it's just a reminder of, in the transition zone, as the late AJ Powell said, it's where we can grow all grasses equally poor, and this winter was a testament to it. And I don't know if it was the the cold that snapped on December 23rd, 24th, where we got down to 0 degrees and below zero for 4 constant days, or I think it was a combination of that, but it was like in the 60s up until then. And then February, if you remember, we hit 80 degrees, and that was,
I was gonna say,
started greening up again, and then boom, we went right back down to below.
I think it was definitely like a combination of all that, where it was like we were having such extreme highs and then extreme lows, like just like back to back to back, and that like if they like even were remotely going to snap out of dormancy at any point, some of the, especially the warm season grasses and stuff, that's like, and then getting cold again, that's pretty rough.
I just saw woody plants, or woody weeds, if you want to call them that, trees and ornamentals that you wouldn't normally see die in the cold. You know, a lot of cryptomera, boxwoods that are just smoked. Yeah,
it was a rough year for almost all
maples.
plants.
Yeah,
very rough year.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably should ask you this a little bit earlier, but Dr. Bowling, would you maybe want to go through, like, because I think this is always an interesting story to hear from just anybody, but like how you got into turfgrass, like sort of your story behind that, and then sort of maybe where you went to school and everything, and just give us your background on that a little bit.
Yeah, so so a little bit of background is that I do have some family history in ag, but not really recently. So basically I'm a 6th generation Texan, and up until my dad's generation, my whole family was on cotton farms. And then my dad got off the farm, and then now I'm back basically on the farm. And so I started off, actually, because I grew up in Dallas, I didn't have a lot of exposure to things like extension or 4-H or really any of that. I grew up in a very urban setting, and went to Texas Tech with the intention of becoming an interior design major, and kind of like moved around in some other things for a while. And then Tech has one of your classes that qualifies for your basic science credit is horticulture. And I took that class and just completely fell in love with it, right? Same reason many of us get into this industry. It's like, I get to be outside. I'm not tied to an office. Like, I get to get my hands dirty. And so fell in love with that. And I worked for faculty out there who specialized in native plants. And so I did that for a lot of my time at Tech. It's really hard to live in Lubbock, Texas and not do cotton. So I actually worked for, while I was doing my master's, I also worked for Bayer Crop Science, and I did cotton research in their greenhouses out there. And then started looking around to do a PhD, and reached out to somebody that had used to be at Texas Tech and had moved on to the University of Georgia, which is Gerald Henry. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm not interested at all in turf, but do you know anybody else at Georgia that's looking to take on a student? And he goes, well, why aren't you interested in turf? I'm like, I'm just, I don't think I'm interested in that. He goes, well, you can do anything you want in turf. Like, if you're interested in environmental science, you can do environmental science in turf. And I said, okay, I'll come out to Athens and I'll check it out. And, came out, fell in love with Athens, fell in love with the program, the whole idea of what I got to do. My PhD was like really interesting. I got to do some social science. I got to work with a company to spearhead some of the early precision turf management research, looking at variable rate fertility and how you can kind of map for some of that. And it was just really, I don't know, it was really neat and kind of unexpected. And, as you get into turf more and more, you learn you learn all of the good things about it. And then probably I really fell in love with like the people that work in turf, right, as well. And so, and now I've been in it now for several years. And so, and even when I was really focused on water in Texas, urban water turf is a huge part of that. So almost everything we did was still turf related. And really trying to convince people, because turf gets a reputation out west as being detrimental to water issues there. And we actually see it's not that simple, and we see a lot of times that the things that replace turf have a lot of their own environmental drawbacks. And, turf can offer a lot of benefits that other alternative landscape options do not offer, and all of that just really interests me. So, So yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it. And plus, like, turf is one of the only crops you can work in where you can wear shorts all the time. So that's nice.
That definitely is a big positive.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's
One question I did have was, you did a lot of work with water use in turf. Do you have any plans to continue that here at UT? I don't know if you can speak to that on what your plans are, if you've put in grants or whatnot for that specifically.
Yeah, so absolutely I do. Water is a very different kind of beast here than it was in Texas. But I also think that the weather is changing, and we're going to see a greater and greater need for proactive plans, even if we're dealing with, so I think here what we'll see more and more of are kind of acute short-term droughts, but intense droughts during summer months that we have to be prepared for. Coupled with something I got really involved in Texas was looking at nature-based solutions for stormwater management. So how do we use soils and plants to mitigate excessive rainfall? And we've had quite a bit of that lately here. And turf can certainly play an important role in that. You know, when we think about what is going to be the best option for sloped areas to stabilize soil, reduce sediment loading, support phytoremediation or cleaning of water, it's going to come back to turf over and over and over again. And so, so I would say that I'll continue to have a water-centric program. There's kind of two parts of that in my mind. One is thinking about water quantity, which is thinking about how do we optimize water use efficiency so that when we do have droughts, we're prepared for that. So that when we're using water as efficiently as possible from an economic standpoint as well. And the other piece of that will be water quality. So thinking about all of the steps we can take to protect, you know, all of the beautiful rivers and lakes and everything that we have here in Tennessee, and protect the water quality in those water bodies. And we have a great faculty member here who I haven't gotten to, actually, she's been gone a lot since I started, but Andrea Ludwig, who does a lot of really great work, where she's a kind of an ecological engineer. She does a lot of great work with rain gardens, and she's got the Tennessee Smart Yards program. And so thinking about how I can partner with her to bring in some more turf-centric work into what she does as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, Tennessee's a very interesting state with water as well, because over here in East Tennessee, we're technically a temperate rainforest, so we get a lot of rain, but somewhere out in Memphis may not see as much. So it's definitely an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, and like one of the things that Jim and I are looking at right now too is kind of exploring this idea of like how we define effective rainfall. And like, just because we get a lot of rain doesn't mean that that's all usable rain, depending on the intensity or the time of year that we receive it. So kind of looking more closely at that as well and how that's changing and shifting. So.
Yeah, no, when it was decided that you were going to be coming here, that was probably one of the most exciting things or one of the things I was most excited about, like having you here, is to see what you were going to do with like some of the waters experience you in the past. Cause like you said, that was like your main focus in Texas. Mm-hmm. And then come to Tennessee, you don't really ever think about water being an issue. Like there's either generally most people live like within 30 minutes to an hour of a pretty major lake or stream or river or something. So it's not like when you think of Tennessee, you don't ever think of like water stress, but I know I'm excited to see sort of where you take this like water efficiency stuff, and just sort of promoting like water awareness in general across the state, even though we don't really think about that as a state in general. I think it'll be very cool to see what that evolves into over the next few years, as you sort of get your foothold on getting around the state and seeing like everything that's going on here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think that in that there's a lot of opportunity, because it's not at the forefront of a lot of people's minds yet, but I think it'll increasingly be a more and more important issue. So to me, it excites me to think about how we as an industry here in the state can get ahead of it. Yeah. You know, maybe better than other states that waited too long and then were hit very hard by some of these challenges and we're not prepared, you know, and we have kind of an opportunity here to be ahead of that. And like I said, it's the whole spectrum. So it's also thinking about as Tennessee becomes more urbanized, like many other states, that leads to land use changes. That's gonna make those rainfall events be more challenging sometimes and create more flooding issues. And, you know, as folks that work in the plants industry, you know, how do we combat that in a natural way? So
yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but since I've been on campus for the past like 6 years, the like evolution of the landscaping on campus where there's been a lot more concrete, a lot more parking garages, they've had to really get creative on like rain like catch systems with like a lot of their landscaping, and they've done a really good job of that. A lot of the medians, you know, now are like water efficient areas where the plants there are like really good at like taking up the water and preventing flooding. Because my freshman year when I was here, and Dr. Sorokin can speak to this a lot more, there's a lot of puddles on campus and like big rain events. It'd be like going down the road. And so I've noticed a big difference in just like that since I've even been here, which I think would be cool for you to sort of take that next step into maybe promoting turf to be one of those things that can maybe prevent that as well as like you said, working with Dr. Ludwig. She's an awesome person, and I think she would be like great to work with on some of that stuff.
Yeah, she's really awesome. I like her a lot.
Stormwater abatement's a big thing, and you know, Dylan, you could attest, coming from Michigan, you're used to seeing clear water, not so much as there's not a lot of clear water here. The Tennessee
Yeah,
Lake,
this has been my first experience living near a waterway that you're not supposed to go into. So
yeah, it's like tea colored, and yeah, you know, that's a lot of suspended soil floating in the river, and it's always been like that. But you know, grass is a great filter for that. So I think looking at how as we become more urbanized, Nashville's exploding, East Tennessee, Knoxville, Chattanooga area, exploding in population, and how grass can complement and clean water as it's coming through the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so speaking of like grasses using the filter, do you have anything that you might be bringing in terms of like pesticide filtering that like gets into runoff and anything like that with like water efficiency, like that kind of stuff?
So I will say, without committing myself too much because I'm still in like proposal stages, but Dr. Brosnan and I submitted a very large grant proposal with many colleagues of ours. This is almost a $12 million proposal to USDA this year with 12 other institutions on it. And it's sort of a continuation of those of you that are familiar with the Resist POA project. It sort of builds on aspects of that, but we're going away from just POA individually, and we're kind of digging into some findings that we had from many of our focus groups that really kind of found that, you know, one of the challenges that we face with really combating these weed issues, in addition to resistance challenges, is, you know, we're losing a lot of tools, right? So with increased scrutiny of pesticides, we're seeing that a growing number of products are becoming restricted use. It's getting increasingly difficult for new products to be registered for use in turf. There's a whole bunch of things that kind of go into that. But one of the things that we're going to really explore is there are some knowledge gaps related to how pesticides move in the environment. And a colleague of ours that Jim and I both work with quite a bit, Dr. Travis Gannon at NC State, that's what he specializes in. And so thinking about research that we can do with him, both as part of the proposal we submitted, and then I'm working with Travis on some other things tentatively, hopefully, that will allow me to look a little bit at pesticide movement in the environment and things like that with him. It's to look at those things is more challenging than people think, and it requires really nice equipment and very expensive infrastructure to look at pesticide, as you're learning, Ben, in some of your things. And so it's challenging to some extent to be able to do that work in turf, because we don't always have the resources or the support that some other cropping industries have. But there's a huge need for it because, you know, we're a dominant crop in urban settings. And so we want to understand, like, what role does turf play in helping to mitigate pesticide movement and in those environments that are very densely populated, right? And so I guess my short answer to that is yes, I think there will be some work in that direction in collaboration with NC State. Not totally sure what that will look like yet, but I would say Travis's lab is kind of the premier lab for that particular work in turf in the country. So I think we'll have some good opportunities there.
To build off that a little bit, it's not even just equipment, but like land use area. So that kind of research can't just be done like in any turf plot. A lot of times you have to have like almost like graded slopes sometimes to like have consistency for your research. So NC State specifically has a research plot that like is specifically graded to like 9% slope just for some work that's like done like this. So sometimes it's like not even a limiting factor of the equipment or whatever. It can also be like having the right land area to do this kind of research on, as well as like knowing like exactly what's in your soil and knowing the history of that soil. Because like when you start getting into like tracking pesticides in the soil, it gets down to like you kind of have to know what's been in the past, because some pesticides have a lot longer residue than others. And then you may like some pesticides you sprayed 2 or 3 years ago may interfere with some reading that you're trying to take on a spray that you did like in the past 4 weeks. So just those kind of variables too are sometimes hard logistically when working through specifically like pesticide bait type work like Dr. Bowling is talking about. But I think that there's, like she talked about, there's definitely plans in the works to sort of do work like that between NC State and Tennessee in the next like probably 2 years, I think, because I know that there's a couple of experiments they're talking about doing next year, just specifically with that kind of stuff, which will be super cool to see where that ends up taking us in STRI 2.0, I guess is what we're calling that. If it gets funded, yes, if it gets funded.
Yeah, we'll see. Very competitive, so.
Yes, but hopefully we get that, because I know the first one was very successful, and there was a lot of good work that came out of that that I'm sure you all have probably heard a lot about here on the panelists. But yeah. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in addition to that too, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to look at non-point source pollution from nutrients, thinking about nutrient fate, thinking about how turf impacts bacterial contamination of water bodies. Bacteria is a major contaminant, E. coli, major contaminant for a lot of water bodies. And so there's a lot of things we can look at. And then the EPA is putting increasing emphasis on PFAS and thinking about, the role that natural grass can play in mitigating some of those concerns as well. So a lot of opportunity.
So I'm actually a little bit unfamiliar with this as well, but like what kind of like pesticide work have you done in the past? And do you plan to maybe continue any of that like here, or do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so I would say that, so I did a lot of continuing education in Texas related to integrated pest management. So going around the state and emphasizing best practices, digging into the research on the ways that we can reduce dependency on synthetic pesticides in turf systems, or at least optimize, if we are going to use them, optimize how efficiently we use them. So did a lot of education about that in Texas, and then was part of the Resist POA project there in Texas. So I got to work a lot with Dr. Brosnan, when I was there in that capacity. Did some work. I would say a lot of the research I did related to pesticides in Texas would have been more weeds oriented. But wasn't a huge part of my program compared to some other things. And so, there may be opportunities, like I said, there's some opportunities for me to continue to do some things as it relates to water quality protection, some opportunities to collaborate with Jim and to collaborate with Travis. But, we already have faculty here that specialize in pest management. We have a pathologist here, we have a weed scientist here, we have, and they're among the best in the country at what they do. And so, I would see that my program, if I worked in some of that, would be in the form of collaborations with those guys more so than anything else. So
Do you think you will collaborate with them, like specifically, like you talked about on your talk? Well, I mean, specifically, you did a lot of the education stuff in Texas. Do you see yourself continuing to do that quite a bit in Tennessee, like helping promote that type of education?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a need for that education in every state, right? For pesticide applicators in particular, and so I will continue to help fill those needs for the industry and work with Jim and Brandon and John to think about how we can do that as a team. And so yeah, so I see myself certainly still continuing to do that. And I think when we talk about water quality protection in particular, integrated pest management, there's a huge connection there, right? And so a lot we can talk about. Something that always interested me some to talk about in Texas too is the idea of indicator weeds. So thinking about looking at the weeds that we see dominating a turf environment and asking the question, what is the underlying issue that's allowing those weeds to outcompete the turf, and addressing that issue. It's not sufficient to just go out there sometimes with 2,4-D and spray out that clover. That clover's there for a reason. So it may give you a temporary solution, but it's probably telling me something else about that environment, right, that I need to address to keep my turf more competitive.
Yeah. Dr. Strachan, Dylan, do y'all have anything? Questions?
Yeah, I mean, I have one. So our lab has been having a lot of samples being sent in, and I think it's starting to become that time of year where we see a lot of disease around the state. I didn't know what kind of things you've been seeing as an extension agent in home lawns, not necessarily just golf courses. If
Yeah.
you've seen anything.
So I have seen dollar spot across all Bermuda environments this year. I think the conditions have been just right for it. Like even in lawn environments, we've seen some dollar spot. This spring, we've seen some leaf spot, just because we've had kind of a very slow warm up, a lot of wet, cloudy weather. And then depending on, whether or not somebody has or has not made a nitrogen application, you're going to see one of those two potentially flare up under these conditions. And then of course, this time of year, we're moving into the time of year that we're going to see more brown patch activity and fescues. And so I haven't had a lot of emails about that yet, but I've sort of been waiting for it. I'm anticipating it as we get warmer and warmer. So
yeah, I think one of the reasons why it's been so delayed is due to May and early June being so dry.
Yeah.
At least in East Tennessee, we didn't have much measurable rainfall, and things just really didn't kickstart, I felt like, until probably about 2 to 3 weeks ago. But as we move into the fall, what kind of things should turf managers be on the lookout for as the warm season grass start to slow down? What kind of diseases do you suggest turf managers look at?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And, I will, just for full disclosure, I'm still getting used to the soil pHs and the soils here are very different than what I experienced in Texas. And so that means different diseases tend to be dominant here compared to what I was used to there. In general, I would say as we move into the fall from a warm season perspective, I would start to worry a little bit about large patch disease, which we know is also caused by rhizoctonia, but it's a different anastomosis group and it manifests at a different time of year in warm season grasses than in cool season grasses. And so I would anticipate that would potentially start to show up in the fall. And usually we recommend preventative fungicide programs for that, for areas that have kind of a known history of that being an issue. I don't know, John, what else am I missing?
Spring dead spot's probably the time you start thinking about it in fall for Bermuda grasses, and for sure. The other one in scouting that, obviously a cost effective. Mm-hmm. Fairy ring, if people want to worry about controlling it.
Oh yeah, fairy ring. See that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, speaking of talking about that kind of stuff and sort of going over problems and best ways to go about fixing those, specifically applied to Tennessee, Dr. Bowling, do you have any plans of bringing back the in-person turf field day? That was a question asked on the Q&A, since you're the lucky person that is now in charge of that, since that was previously Dr. Sample's responsibility. But do you have any plans for that, or what are your thoughts on that?
So I know that we won't be doing anything this year. I believe the intention is that we will discuss that as a team, to discuss the best way to kind of approach that going forward. And there will probably be some opportunities for, stakeholders that we work with in a closer capacity, those that are involved, for example, with TTA boards, et cetera, to kind of weigh in on what that might look like. So I would imagine there would be some version of that in the future, whether or not it looks exactly like it used to look before. I think we still have to have those discussions. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of questions on it. I actually got a text from it today. Someone asking if we're going to actually have it as well. I think it was more of a regional thing. We tried to do it one time in Nashville, and a field day at the little course, and we put some trials out there. But we had a pretty large field day. It was about 600 people in attendance. So when a lot of states were growing down, we actually grew ours pretty good. But it's pretty regional. But there's a lot of professional lawn care operators and city park and rec and things that, I think they look at, those Tennessee Turf Tuesdays help fill some of those voids on some of that. But I think a lot of the park and rec people would still like to come see something like that. So if we do some sort of hybrids, maybe there's smaller, more esoteric type field days, a sports turf related one, or a golf, or a commercial lawn care residential one, or something like that. Or it's a full-fledged big field day again. I don't know. That's a good question. I think we definitely need to sit down and meet on it, though, because it'd be good to get a poll out there, or send a poll out and ask people if they would like it, and get the feedback from the practitioners for sure.
I can tell you, Ben, for sure that there will be some in-person events. What they look like, I'm not sure yet, but I think there's great value to those. And I think people are getting tired of doing everything. It's nice to have this as a convenience. But people like
definitely nice to get your pesticide credits this way.
Exactly.
Make sure you're getting those. So what do you, Dr. Bowling, I think you're slightly familiar. I know you were not here, but what did you think about the way we sort of switched it up? Instead of field day last year, we did the crash course. So it was a little bit different format. It was more so open to companies. But did you have any thoughts about that? Or is there any things that you heard or saw from that you may want to apply to future type field day type events, sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what John was alluding to, is this idea that maybe we do a series of smaller, more focused events that can really cater to the specific needs of individual audiences. The larger field day can be very exciting just for the sake of having a very large event with a lot of people, but it may limit how much of that information is relevant to any one specific audience, right? Because you're trying to appeal to a very broad spectrum of people. And so there's something to be said, with the crash course, that was very, and John can speak to that way better than me, because I wasn't here, like you said, but that catered very specifically to a particular audience and was able to meet specific needs of that audience very effectively. Right. So
and a couple of the things that I really took away from that I hadn't seen before that I thought would be great to continue, maybe not in a crash course setting, but like you said, do those smaller type events where it's more focused. We have a more individualized group where it's maybe not one-on-one, but field day events can be, we have 50 people talking to one person talking to 50 people. At the crash course, it was more so 2 or 3 instructors to maybe 15 or 20 people. And one of the main events that I thought was interesting for that seemed to be very helpful was we did a simple mower maintenance type event during that, showing simple mower maintenance, going over some stuff like that with our head of turf here, our turf our research farm, Bill Shizek. And then another couple of things we had with sprayer calibration, some stuff like that. And I think that was really unique and cool events to add to sort of a field day type event like that could probably be very useful to a lot of operators and just turf and landscape managers across the state that maybe you might know what you might, do that every day, but sometimes it's nice to have a refresher, or you may have a new person join your company, whatever. And that may be a good way for them to sort of not have you sort of walking them through everything and have another set of ear or another set of another perspective, walking them through that may help them better understand how to best do that. So
Yeah, I agree that those hands-on activities, they have a lot of value. You do have to do them with a smaller group though, for them to be really effective. And that may be, like John said, we may discuss as a turf team, and then there may be a poll that not only asks, what type of event people are looking for, but are there specific topics or specific hands-on trainings that would be of greater value to specific audiences.
Exactly. Dylan, Dr. Ruffin, do y'all have anything? Questions, comments?
You talked about, we got Brandon doing pathology and Jim doing weeds. We don't have anyone doing entomology. So you can always become an entomologist too if you want to get into the spraying like they do.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And that may be something that I explore. Entomology has never been my strongest pest area. I would say I have the least experience with it. But we do have, so UT does have a new pathologist and a new entomologist coming in to Nashville and filling some positions there. So there could be some good opportunities for collaborations. Both of those individuals.
This is for Frank Hale and Alan Wyndham's positions, right? So this is really exciting that they got people coming in for those.
Yes.
Talking about other big shoes to fill because they've done amazing work.
Yeah.
Right.
So both of those individuals will be coming here to Knoxville next week. So I'll get to have coffee with them and maybe chat a little bit more. But yeah, so there could be some opportunities there as well.
So have they already started, or are they okay? Awesome.
Yeah, I believe they've both started now. I know the entomologist has, and the pathologist may just now be starting, but I know that they'll both be here next week. So
awesome. Very cool. Let's see here.
So will there be expectations for them to do applied research and things like that as well, being 100% extension, similar to your position and stuff?
Yes, as I understand it, that will be the expectation. They have been given some lab space as well to conduct some research, and there is an expectation too that they're both doing some turf related work. So there will
we have them at the farm then too, to be able to show them some proving grounds that we could
I can definitely take them over there after. I don't know what they'll be here for 3 days, and I don't know exactly. So we'll go get coffee one morning, and then if we can take them over there, that'd be good.
They're still based out of the center in Nashville, correct? Or
yes, I guess they're both in Nashville. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that'll be very cool to have them in Knoxville, and hopefully just in general, the turf and landscaping teams will be able to sort of collaborate with them quite a bit, because I know it was awesome to work with Dr. Wyndham and Dr. Hale. They were awesome. Great people all around. Definitely really good at also sort of including turf a lot of times. I know they definitely did a good job of adding that to the list a lot of times.
Yeah, Dr. Wyndham had some phenomenal. I just happen to be really familiar with some of his stuff, but he had some phenomenal resources that were very helpful for turf diagnostics for diseases, really great microscope pictures, and
I know I took Dylan and I actually both took the pest diagnostics class that they put on together last summer. It was their last class, and I know they did a really good job of because Dylan and I were the only turf students in the class, and they did a really good job of helping us find some turf stuff along with all the ornamental stuff that they were maybe a little bit more passionate about or knew a lot more about. But they definitely took us around and helped us find some turf stuff to look at, so we weren't just looking at hydrangeas all day. But no, they were awesome, and I look forward to seeing the 2 new people that are filling their positions, and hopefully they can do as good a job as people before them. So. Dr. Bowling, do you have anything else you'd like to comment about, or anything you want to add?
I don't know that I do yet. I would just say keep an eye out, those of you that are joining today, there will probably be a series of kind of polls or surveys that go out to kind of, like I said, get a sense of the needs across the industry. So I genuinely want to hear from people, and so keep an eye out for that, and don't hesitate to reach out to me. I should point out that there is another Becky Bowling in our college that is faculty. She's in Ag Econ. So do make sure that if you're searching around for me, that you're looking for the Turf Becky. And I can put my email address in the chat. It's my maiden name, and I can put that in there for whoever would like to contact me.
Yeah, so we've got about 5 to 10 minutes left. We also will take any questions that people may have in the chat. Let's see here. So Dr. Bowling, you started in May, the 1st of May, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How has Tennessee summer been here so far, first of all, and compared to Texas summer? And then also, how's just like, you know, life been so far? I know you said you were enjoying Knoxville and like you just like love this area, but how's it been like your first, I guess, like 2.5 months here?
Well, those of you that follow the news have seen that Texas has experienced some really extreme heat early in the summer this year. They had like heat indexes around 114, 115 a couple weeks ago. So by comparison, the summer here so far has been phenomenal. I mean, I think, as I understand it, this has been cooler than the average year here even. And I think the high the last couple of days has been like 82, 83. I mean, I'm not going to complain about that. That's like awesome. It's definitely been a little wet.
Yeah.
But I don't mind that either, coming from someplace where you may not get rain for 100 years. So
yeah, it's quite the opposite from where you came from. I know. I was interested to see, because you were coming to the I feel like you probably got up here and it was probably already like 20 degrees cooler than it was in Texas, like in the 1st of May when y'all were moving up here.
Oh yeah, I mean, beautiful. It's beautiful here. And yeah, I got to do the First Friday walk in Knoxville this last Friday with a colleague of mine and John Kelly. And that was really exciting. We went to Pretentious, which was really cool. Those of you that are not familiar, it's like a glass blowing place / you can drink there, but the glass blowing's really cool. Like, I don't know. It's awesome. Like I said, I love being back in a true college town. So
yeah, because you in Texas, I know you originally were in College Station, correct? Like when you first started at Texas A&M, was that correct? And then you got moved to Dallas, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And if there's Aggies on here, please don't take offense, but College Station, it's a good town. It doesn't have some of the things that Knoxville has or that Athens has. It's just kind of a different vibe. So it's like I said, I'm real excited to be here.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, an anonymous attendee asked, who will you be pulling for in college football this year?
Ooh, tough. Tennessee, every week but one. So
which week is that, against Texas A&M or Georgia? Is a real question.
Georgia for sure is my yeah. It's hard not to be a Georgia Bulldogs fan right now.
Yeah, especially when your husband's like a diehard. I know.
Pretty easy for me. I'm just saying.
But I have fully embraced. You can ask John. I fully embrace the power tee. I wear it almost every day. All about it. Fully embrace the orange. I'm really enjoying it. So
Orange is the new red.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Now if we can get your husband on board as well, that'll
I
be
don't know that that's gonna happen. Although if we get rowback shirts, that might convince him.
Oh really? Okay. Well then we might just have to make that happen then. Alrighty. I think we're approaching that 55-minute mark. So I will go ahead and put up the GCSAA code. That way everyone can get that for GCSAA credit. Let me share my screen here. So
So people can earn their points. What's your favorite weed?
Yeah.
Becky?
My favorite weed in what context?
I
Like,
don't know. I would say don't say cannabis. What is your favorite weed? What is your favorite turfgrass weed?
I mean, I feel like POA has to be in the mix because it's played such a big part of my career
Okay.
so far. But
What's your favorite insect pest?
grubs.
Of course, because it's in your name.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite disease?
Take all. Gomomyces.
Okay. What's your favorite grass?
Probably buffalo. But then zoysia.
I was gonna say you might want to pick one that's grown in Tennessee.
I know. People are like, what's buffalo grass? It's so cute though. I love it. And it's dioecious and just adorable. But yeah, but after that, zoysia, I do love zoysias. They're so versatile.
Kentucky
And
bluegrass.
beautiful.
Dr. Schwab, specifically, you've had a lot of zoysia, which we've talked a lot about on Tennessee Turf Tuesdays, but if you love zoysia that much, you'll have plenty of opportunity.
Yeah.
Do
Nothing
some work
beats
with
Kentucky
it.
bluegrass, though, in my opinion. So that's all.
Is that your favorite, John?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's your favorite weed?
Lamb's quarter, because you just have to mow it and it's dead. So.
And what's your favorite turf insect?
Good question. I would say it's also grubs, probably Japanese beetles, because they're colorful and their celloprint's good on them.
And then what about disease?
Probably dollar spot. That's what I did some work with when I first got here. I did some dollar spot work, and that's a cool one to deal with. And my favorite is the pathologists can't come up with names for diseases or things like that. They keep changing all those things. So and that's one that's bounced around a lot.
It should be done bouncing around though. I think we finally figured out what it is.
Yeah, I think so.
Hopefully so. Alrighty. Well, I think that concludes our session for the day. Make sure, like I said, you take a screenshot of the GCSAA point thing here, and then so you can get that. And just to repeat, you will, as long as you've been on for the full hour, you will receive pesticide credits for today's event as for the state that you entered them in for when signing up for this webinar. And other than that, just a reminder also, if you are watching this after the fact or listening to it from Apple Podcasts or YouTube, you will not be able to receive pesticide credits. Other than that, thanks everyone. And again, welcome Dr. Bowling to UT. And I know we're all excited to have you in the UT Turfgrass team here. So looking forward to seeing what all you do.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks everyone for joining us on this Tennessee Turf Tuesday. The next one will be in August. And so be sure to look out for that. And thank you all again and hope everyone has a great day.